It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday. Hope you all had a wonderful Super Bowl weekend. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks and their fan base on winning their second Super Bowl championship in a pretty decisive victory over the New England Patriots. And I hope you get to enjoy a great halftime show. I know I did with Turning Points USA, great country artists, and just a really good, wholesome, patriotic message. That's what I got of the halftime show, at least the halftime show that matters to me, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. And of course, I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right now on the Jersey First social media platforms. If you've done so already, folks, takes 90 seconds just to do that. Again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode, of course, and also do it on all of your social media platforms. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, of course. Follow us on Instagram and X. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. We got great programming there on our YouTube channel. Of course, whether you listen to Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First, and you can listen to episodes of Real Talk anywhere at any time, whether you're walking your dog, even in these frigid temperatures, folks, doing food shopping, whatever it is you're doing, folks. Last minute Valentine's Day shopping, since Valentine's Day is this weekend. Guess what? You probably have your smartphone or your tablet on you. Download Jersey First and take it with you wherever and whenever you're out and about. And of course, folks, front and center here, I'm leading the way on Jersey First TV, always educating and advocating for the great residents here in the state of New Jersey. Folks, I can't say it enough. We appreciate your faith in us. And of course, I'll continue to be the hero you need right now. Now more than ever, folks, as establishment media in New Jersey continues to lie to you, guess what? I never will. And that's why I'm proud to bring you Real Talk every Monday night here. Check your local listings for start times every Monday night on the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, you want to stick around for final thoughts? I have a lot to say really about, folks, I'm really impressed here. Lately, we're seeing, obviously, the usual suspects, and whether it's in academia, activism, you name it, government work, elected officials who love to virtue signal or maybe barely doing any work. And when I think about barely doing any work, well, folks, let's be honest, I'm impressed with Uncle David Cruz, doing some actual work in the last few weeks. I got to give it to you, folks. I call balls and strikes fairly on this show, but I'm really impressed with his work ethic lately, which, let's be honest, when was that ever present in the last few years? But I'm impressed with it lately. But still, Uncle Dave doesn't waste any moments to virtue signal. I'll tell you why that's important, folks. And of course, obviously, with what seems to be a win by activist Ana Lilia Mejia in the 11th Congressional District special election, it's important to stay away from certain people. They may want to sort of be grifting and jumping on those coattails. And when I think about grifting in New Jersey, I think about Patty Campos Medina and others. I'll let you know during a special comment why it's easy to fall under the trap of these two, her husband as well, and why, someone as smart as Ana Lilia Mejia should stay clear of grifters like this. More on that during a special comment. But folks, it is, again, a Monday here in February, obviously special election time. There's always seems to be a race, an election in New Jersey. It's never an off season, as they say. And guess what? When we're talking about election seasons at any time of the year, why not talk to the man who does it better than anybody else in media here in New Jersey? Folks, he's a big fan of the show. He's a friend of mine, and he's really, quite honestly, the distinguished editor of the New Jersey Globe. My good friend, David Wildstein, joins us live right now on Real Talk. David, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Hey, Fernando. How are you?
Good to see you, man. It's been frigid up here in New Jersey, single digits, but I'm sure it's okay down by you. Is that fair to say?
I don't know. It's been cold. It's been in the 50s. And,
okay.
When you winter in Florida and you're accustomed to being in the 80s, you get all bundled up all day long. So
yeah, it's
sort of that Jersey manhood, I guess.
Well, I would give it 50 degrees right now. Oh my goodness! But
I will tell you, no income tax. So
that's good stuff.
Yeah.
These red states are good for a reason, right? So, David, welcome back. Obviously, listen, I'm as big a fan of you as there is out there in independent media. And, one of the reasons I think that you continue to set the bar so high about journalism and releasing information, publishing timely news and accurate news, is because you do it really, really well, better than anybody. But it seems like, in the last couple of weeks, or really in the last week, you took a little, in my opinion, unnecessary flack from the usual haters online. Listen, there's no exact science to whether it's polling or calling elections. You always have a thick skin, but you always are a gentleman, brother, and you take it, you don't sell it, to use a pro wrestling term, and you do it with a smile. So how you feeling a couple of days after what seems to be a really crazy special election season in the 11th Congressional District here in New Jersey?
Yeah, we all knew that this was going to be a tough one to predict because and people like you and I, we're still scarred by the 2025 polling. That was 40 polls that were incorrect right down the line, showing it was supposed to be a close race and never was. So I didn't pay much attention to the few polls that I saw in this special, because if they can't poll a gubernatorial election in November correctly, how are you going to poll a Thursday in February when it's freezing cold out? But this was just an absolutely fascinating race, and what I really think is the most important thing to point out is high turnout. 63,000 Democrats voted on a Thursday in February. That's more than a race in a midterm might get in June. So that, at least, I hope you agree with me, good for democracy when you get an election that's got a high turnout of voters.
Absolutely. And again, not to sort of keep hampering on this, but man, it's been single digit days here in New Jersey. So just getting out to vote also has been incredible. Again, a lot of dedication by registered Democrats in that district, where it's kind of interesting, though, David, because obviously the winner, who has yet to be declared in this race per se, is looking to succeed Mikey Sherrill, the current governor of New Jersey. And, while I have a lot of policy disagreements with Mikey Sherrill, I mean, when she was a member of the House of Representatives, she wasn't like this crazy far left progressive, like some that came to New Jersey to campaign coincidentally for what seems to be perhaps the winner, Uribe Mejia. Bernie Sanders out of the U.S. Senate. You have Representative, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You have others who are really far left progressives who came to New Jersey and campaigned heavily for Uribe, and kind of sort of like a spit in the face to the establishment Dems that, without a county line anymore, David, we're kind of hoping to cruise, and that's not the case.
You just say cruise, so I always smile when you say cruise. I'm sorry. Look, we're in the early days of the new world order in New Jersey primaries. We saw a quarter of the assembly primaries last year that were fairly close without a line. This year we saw a candidate win with, right now, I think, potentially winning with 29% of the vote. 11, when you get 11 candidates in the race, and if you look at the ballot of what it looked like without lines, and just names down a column or across a line, it's hard to find people, and that's what our future is going to look like. It's not about the money. We're seeing that now too. It's not all about the money. It's about organization. And I think what we're going to find is the difference between organizations and clubs and two people sitting in a diner with an iPhone on social media. The two people don't get you any votes. They can be loud, but they don't get you any votes. And the clubs, they go to meetings, right? And they'll show up in an event and they'll do FaceTime with the candidates. But what you're really going to be looking at, and that's one of the things that Uribe Mejia had, are boots on the ground, people that were willing on a cold, in January and February, when it was freezing cold, to go do their job and go door to door. And how many people there are in these campaigns in both parties. They go, they do the selfie with the candidate, they post it on the social media, and they think they're influencers. And the candidates don't need influencers. The candidates need people to actually go out and do work. And Mejia, to her credit, she is a professional organizer, whether you like her politics or not. This is what she does, and she's good at it. And she and Hetty Rosenstein and others in that inner circle, they organized the hell out of this race. And one of the reasons you got 63,000 Democrats on a cold Thursday in February is because you had unlikely voters, people that were not supposed to vote in a special election, that came out fairly heavily. And those were, as it turned out, predominantly Mejia voters.
Absolutely. And again, the name recognition was there with other candidates. You had certainly the lieutenant governor, you had Essex County Commissioner Brendan Gill, who, again, I guess a lot of people thought it was in the bag for him, so much that I'm hearing reports his wife was out of the country on vacation. I mean, my goodness. And you hear Tom Malinowski.
I don't know. I thought I saw her on election night.
Oh, you did? Okay. You have Tom Malinowski, great name recognition, former representative in the 7th Congressional District, who it seems like AIPAC, really kind of went to work on him a little bit, and we're seeing that. But to your point about Anna Lilly, I interviewed her years ago, and you're right. Yeah, listen, there probably isn't one policy prescription I agree with her on, but she's a worker. She is someone who has really gotten down the science of organizing, knocking on doors, a ground game. And again, even more credit to her and her staff, where, again, we're talking about multiple days, David, here in New Jersey, North Jersey, single digits, and people are out there canvassing. Yeah. And I think it's a testament, again, to when there's no county line. I mean, it seems like, at least in the Democrat Party lately, we're seeing that progressives feel really emboldened. We saw it, for example, in Jersey City, nearby where I live. The new mayor, James Solomon, is a pretty devoted progressive. You saw that in Hoboken with Emily Jabor. You saw that in Parsippany as well with other progressives. It seems like without a county line, establishment Democrats don't seem to have the stranglehold they once did.
No, and it's going to take a few cycles to sort of figure out how this is all going to work. And right now, you've got a district in the 11th. This is not the AOC district. This is not the typical place where you've got I'm not saying liberals, but to the left of liberals, the more progressive base. This is the 11th where Mikey Sherrill 7 years ago flipped a seat that had been Republican for 34 years. This is I don't have these. I think I'm right on these numbers, but the median income in the 11th is about $150,000 a year. The 11th is over 60% white. And
David, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'll let you finish. Yeah. But when you look at that district, you look at townships like Montclair, the typical stroller moms, the typical suburban white women, college educated. And that's really what is concentrated in the 11th. Obviously, there's the other municipalities, but you saw that. That's what got Mikey Sherrill elected. It seems like this same demographic is looking at a progressive like Anna Lilly Mejia and saying, let's try something new, because the establishment Dems that we're kind of used to isn't really working for us. That's kind of like the vibe I'm getting, but continue. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's just these are now growing pains, because the establishment Democrats, what did they have more than anything else? They had a preferential ballot position. Yeah. It was easier to find them, and they have lost that advantage. To borrow, I hate it when people do sports metaphors, but I'll do one now. They're all hitting pitches that have never come at them before.
Yeah,
and it's entirely different. It's going to take a while for everybody to get used to it. Remember, and I'm not diminishing what looks like Anna Lilly's win here, but remember, 70% of the Democrats didn't vote for her, and you don't have runoffs, and New Jersey, you sort of wonder what would have happened if this was if those progressives who so desperately want ranked choice voting. If had there been ranked choice voting in this election, I think the results might have changed also. And you had a lot of votes that were you know I'll just say it bluntly. It's going to probably get me in trouble, but a lot of votes were wasted on candidates who were never in contention to begin with. And that was J.L. Covan who
Yeah.
uh, got 1% of the vote. Those. I mean, what do you get from that? And by the way, here's a guy missed opportunity. I've been following J.L. Covan for years. He's got a pretty good Donald Trump impression. He's
Yeah. Yeah. He does.
he's very good at it. He can be very funny. Somebody said to him, "Hey, don't don't come on as a comedian. Come on as like a serious candidate as a lawyer." Well, he's just a lawyer with no name ID and no money. He should have maybe had some fun with this and tried to double his percentage or something. I don't know, but
No, fair enough. And David, too, listen, I think when we talked in December, I kind of, again, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but again, with less than 1,000 votes here of a margin, I kind of said, hey, listen, it's not out of the realm of possibility that, yes, we have this special election coming up in April. And we'll see, obviously, Joe Hathaway, who will join us on the show, folks, in a few weeks. So you want to stick around for my interview with Joe Hathaway, seems to be running as a moderate Republican. We'll see in that district, if it is indeed Ana Lilia Mejia, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, though, David, that because of the small margin, and should Ana Lilia, let's say, go on to win this and go on to win the special election, that maybe some establishment Dems might say, hey, wait a second, it was a small margin. There's still a June primary. She might still face another hurdle in another primary challenge leading up to June as well. I kind of called that months ago. Again, we're still far away from that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, right?
well, the filing deadline is the end of March, and it could be one of the people that's in the race. Some like Brendan Gill have said I'm definitely not running. I'm for Mejia. He's up for re-election to the Board of Commissioners this year. Some of them are waiting for the final count. I don't blame them for doing that. You could have somebody new that comes in. Watch to see what Governor Sherrill does in her own district. I assume that she'll endorse the winner of the Democratic primary. It's a bunch of campaigns to go, and yet again, here we are. I love to quote my favorite New Jerseyan, Yogi Berra of Montclair, but of Montclair of a different era than Montclair is now. And he says it's getting late early out there.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah, that's
the
right.
reality is, if somebody new gets in right now and they've got to raise the money and get their name out. I mean, the vote by mail ballots go out in April.
Yeah.
And people forget, and this is one of the things that threw me off in this election, is that the VBMs for last Thursday's primary went out on December 22nd.
Yeah.
Before anybody really had a chance to develop their own identity and make their own pitch to voters. And vote by mail, it starts early.
It does. That's right.
So,
it does. It certainly does. David, we'll get back to CD11 in a minute, but I want to pick your brain on this race here where, I'm a little biased here, but obviously with Representative Coleman stepping down, obviously it's a wide open race down there. I almost cringe at the thought of someone like Sue Altman being the perennial favorite down there in CD12, but she's raising some money. There are some questions by some progressives about ties to AIPAC, but what are you hearing out of CD12? And does that sound like it's probably going to be remaining as a blue district with someone like Sue Altman, God help me, potentially being the next representative in the House in CD12?
Yeah, it's a Democratic district, and there's no doubt about it. And if Jack Ciattarelli couldn't win, got beat by 15 points last year statewide, it would have been more in the 12th district. That is what happens when gerrymandering exists. Is these are not competitive general elections, and this new House member is going to be chosen in the primary. Sue, whether you like what she stands for or not, she, I haven't seen people work harder than Sue Altman.
No, she does. She works. Yeah, she works. Yeah.
She knows how to be a congressional candidate. It, takes a little bit of time to learn how to do this. History is full of people who got it on their second or their third try, and she's in a primary where, when you sort of plot out the Democrats from left to center, she's not the furthest left in that primary.
True.
And
Yeah, that's right.
and I think she's I think right now, given that first day of fundraising, $250,000 in the first 12 hours, she may be the person to be. Verlina Reynolds Jackson, very, very nice person, conscientious legislator. Again, I don't do things from an ideological standpoint.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying from a position of whether she is good, would vote the way Fernando Uribe would want her to vote, but she's all, she's a good legislator. Chanel Robinson, county commissioner, they've run a pretty good county in Somerset. You've got some people there with extraordinary life stories. Adam Hamaway, who was a combat surgeon. He was the guy in a combat field hospital that saved Tammy Duckworth's life. I mean, that is a great story.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
You have Rick Morales, West Point grad, also a physician. He's 70 years old. He's looking to say, I'd like to do a few years again in service to my country. It's a big field. You don't predict these races this early. You've got to see where they go. And then, in the 7th district primaries, competitive. So
absolutely,
primaries this year.
Absolutely. And speaking about another primary that obviously is up for grabs, certainly in the 9th congressional district, Tiffany Burris, for anyone that doesn't know, the wife of Super Bowl champion from the New York Giants, Plaxico Burris, has entered the race as a Republican in the 9th congressional district. In recent weeks, former candidate Billy Prempe, who I like very much, hard worker, didn't raise as much money as I would have liked him to have raised. I think the national GOP, even the NJ GOP, I think, let him down in the last cycle because he came within a point and a half, I think, of beating Nellie Poe. It seems like Tiffany Burris, obviously because of her husband's name recognition, is going to help. She's also a very big advocate, an accomplished lawyer. She's raising some money. Wouldn't be shocked, obviously, David, that, she tells her husband, hey, any teammates of yours with deep pockets, reach out to them. Maybe they want to donate. And, Nellie Poe obviously won that race very narrowly in 24. It seems that Republicans are trying to get a little giddy, not just in 9, but also in 11 with, moderate Republicans, not like true red, MAGA Republicans. These aren't the Republicans, I think, that are running in those districts, where I think the NJGOP feels that maybe that Democrat is a little vulnerable, whether it's Nellie Poe or whoever wins in the 11th. When you look at Joe Hathaway or Tiffany Burris, if you want to maybe quantify, the odds of that, do you give them a puncher's chance in this?
You talk about what the NJGOP is going to do. It's like, they first have to prove to everybody what they can do.
Yeah, that's right.
What value they have. Are they going to raise tens of dollars, or are they suddenly going to tap into millions of dollars to be able to support the candidates? If they're not going to, if the money's not there, and look, people can rightfully say that this shouldn't be about the money, but it is. It's about the money, because without the money, you can't reach voters in order to persuade them. I think, in the case of the 9th district, Donald Trump won that district by 1 point, Nellie Poe by 5, but we're living in a different world than we were in November of 24. It's not just that her husband's former fellow players, or should kick in a few thousand. It's whether she's going to be able to put together a super PAC with a full few million, and that's the same thing. And then you've got Joe Hathaway. Joe Hathaway's a nice guy, and I've known him since the very start of his political career, and he's going to have to decide: is he a Chris Christie Republican? Is he a Donald Trump Republican? Which one? Is he going to be? Where is he going to wind up? He showed a little bit of independence in the last couple of days in criticizing the Trump administration over pulling money from the ARC from the Gateway Tunnel. But of course it was Christie that ended the ARC funding, and had that money not been pulled, then that tunnel would be in full operation now. We wouldn't be worried about it. Hathaway's a good candidate. But you tell me, Fernando, this is, you're around this base all the time. Are MAGA Republicans who love Donald Trump, will they accept a candidate who is not towing the Trump line 100% of the time, or will they just stay home in an April special?
Well, again, it sort of leads me to my next question. I'll sort of answer that by introducing this. It references your old friend Christopher, who seems to be resurfacing in Republican politics. Obviously, you saw him at a recent dinner with State Senator John Bramnick. Yeah. And it seems like people at that event, along with Chris himself and even State Senator Bramnick, have been very adamant that, like, a Republican in New Jersey, for he or she to win, is going to have to distance themselves from the MAGA coalition, from the current president of the United States. And some Republicans look at Chris Christie and laugh, like I do. Yeah. And others look at John Bramnick and sort of are very skeptical about John Bramnick and other Republicans. And I would argue that Hathaway and Burris, I think, have to walk a little bit of a fine line to answer your question about how to define themselves as Republicans. Do you want to just be a moderate Republican, which, again, they can win in New Jersey. They have won, not a big sample size, but they've won. But I'm not sure if aligning yourself with someone like Chris Christie is probably the best bet. That's what some Republicans in the establishment are saying. Hey, maybe we have to go back to the basics, the old bread and butter, excuse the pun, when referencing Chris Christie. But it seems like maybe going back to what helped win elections, which Chris did twice, and Bramnick continues to do. I'm kind of in a quagmire here, David. I don't know really where Republicans can go to in this cycle here in New Jersey, where Jack Chiarelli, it looked like he could have won. He got demolished. The GOP has to start from scratch. Shout out to Chairwoman Hanlon, who will be on the show coming up soon. So I'm looking forward to talking to her. But it's a big quagmire to be a Republican in New Jersey, David.
It is, and Fernando, if you were a Democrat and you believed in God, I would tell you to go to church or synagogue or to your mosque and pray that New Jersey Republicans are screwed up enough that they'll ask Chris Christie to come back and be the titular head of their party, because that is a blessing to Democrats. There's, you may have a small group of people, that are the Christie, sycophants. It is a tiny number that are saying, boy, wouldn't it be great if Christopher came back? But this would be the equivalent of Cambodia saying, hey, how can we get Pol Pot back to be our leader? That would be a good idea. This is you have a family show. I'll apologize in advance.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
What a shitty idea by Republicans to say that we're going to base our comeback on Christopher's resurgence as a party leader. The only one who wants Christopher back is Christopher.
That's true. But it also sort of begs the question, though, David, because I talked to a lot of Republicans statewide, and even some of the Bramnick loyalists are like, well, again, and John, even people like Bill Spadea have wasted no time since November saying, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so, about people like Jack. They have to get away from Jack. They have to kind of get back maybe more towards the center. I don't disagree about getting back to the center, but the problem is that a messenger like Christopher is the wrong messenger. And people look at me like, oh, Fernando, you're just too much of a David, I think you've been following me enough. Long before a guy went down the escalator
Yeah.
10 years ago in Midtown Manhattan, I was a staunch conservative on media longer than anything. So this idea that I can't get away from MAGA, I've been a conservative forever. The problem is that some Republicans think that Bramnick and Christopher are the answer. And I'm sorry to say they're not, but it seems like I get attacked for that, David.
Yeah, well, you're you're in the right on this one, so I wouldn't lose any sleep over
Okay, fair enough.
that.
And David, we're about to wrap up. I know shortly. I know you have to go in a little bit, but obviously these special elections are very interesting. Certainly in CD11. What are you hearing? Since obviously there's still maybe some provisional ballots coming in, maybe still some vote by mail that has to be counted. What are you hearing, or what do you foresee a winner being declared in CD11 in the Democrat Party primary?
Yeah, well, first of all, I very much screwed up that call early in the evening on Thursday, so I'm now being even extra cautious in terms of saying who this winner is going to be. On the other hand, the numbers are now what they are. There's still a couple of thousand votes left to be counted. We don't know how many of them are Democrats and how many of them are Republicans, and how many of those votes are going to be valid to count or not. It's tough to make up an 889 vote deficit for Malinowski. I think she's in good shape, and this is she's going to have to work hard in the general, but if she does, this is a district that was designed to be a Democratic district, and like I said earlier, if you want competitive races, then they've got to get rid of the gerrymandering, and as long as gerrymandering's there, I don't know that it's going to go any differently.
David, I had the privilege of meeting you last year during a really crazy election cycle. Obviously, you, along with everybody at the New Jersey Globe, Michael Rasmussen with obviously at Rice University, obviously everyone on New Jersey News. Obviously, great job with the debates last year in both parties. What can we anticipate from the New Jersey Globe coming up now during this election cycle? We have some interesting county commissioner races. We have some interesting primaries here. For example, in Hudson County, where I live, in the 8th Congressional District, the incumbent Rob Menendez seems to be getting a challenge from mayoral candidate and staunch progressive Musa Bali. There'll be other primaries that I'm sure will be hotly contested. Any primary debates that we could look forward to that will be hosted by the New Jersey Globe in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, I'm sure we will, and I plan to. And the most recent one, it was tough to do a debate. You can't do a debate with 11 candidates. That's just a discussion among a bunch of people fighting for microphone time. I don't know that would have been completely productive for the voters. But yeah, we'll do some debates, and certainly in the general. And I'll tell you what I want to really look at, in the coming weeks as we get into filing deadline time is this. If this is going to be this is Donald Trump's midterm election, and this is going to be a time where I think a lot of Republicans who are in competitive towns, running for reelection or trying to flip seats, are going to have to decide, how what's happening nationally is going to affect down ballot races. I want to see how good they are at recruiting candidates, and I know I'm running out of time for you, but I'll say this. Candidate recruitment is really important. Yes. And if you can't come up with good candidates in March, then don't be surprised and this is for both parties, don't be surprised if you lose elections in November. And, you and I see this every cycle, Fernando, is the number of people who run for office who haven't, been honest with themselves about self-vetting and taking a look at what might fly. If you are if you're 5 years arrears on your taxes, don't run for public office. If you have a warrant out for your arrest, don't run for public office, because a lot of people, they bring good, well-intentioned, folks down a road with them, and then they just get screwed. So we're now at this pivotal time where, if you really want to have an effect here, and you have a more conservative audience, but you have Democrats who watch you too. From the highest levels of Hudson County, and you in your hometown of Union City, you have Democrats who watch you, so I say this to everybody: what's going to happen in the fall could be won or lost based on the quality of who you recruit in February and March. And this is, you want Republicans to rebuild a party. You start at the local level, and you start electing members of borough councils and township committees, and find, don't run an 85-year-old guy for a township committee seat, because he's not going to be ready to run for Congress for you in 15 years.
True. David, real quick before I let you go, obviously the new governor has to submit a budget within the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Not an easy task for Mikey Sherrill. Obviously, well, listen, you might raise the sales tax. We still have issues about affordability in New Jersey, electric bills, the budget. Do you foresee Mikey Sherrill maybe not being as progressive as some on the left, and many Democrats are hoping that she'll be? Will she have to tighten the belt a little bit in Trenton, because it seems like spending's going to be completely out of control, David?
Yeah, one person who's never said that Mikey Sherrill was a progressive is Mikey Sherrill. She's never said it. She's never, she has not pandered to the far left, and she has still won these elections. So, we're in this honeymoon period of new governors. Let's see in early March what she proposes as her budget, and then everything from there is fair game.
David, you continue to set the standard with what the New Jersey Globe does, and I couldn't be prouder to call you a friend. I know your time is valuable. When you come on this show, it really tells me that you believe in my brand of journalism, and I'm grateful for that, man, because you don't have to come on these podcasts. You do it because you enjoy it. I enjoy our conversations. I'm grateful for our rapport and really for the quality of excellent journalism that you provide. So I'm grateful for your belief in mine, and I want to give you the last word here tonight, sir.
No, it's just, I think I've said this to you before, which is I'm concerned about local journalism, and what you do is important. And I would say that to somebody who replicated what you did do on the left side, but you have a real reach, and you have developed a huge audience, Fernando. And
thank you.
That's not easy to do. No. There are a lot of choices for your time out there. A lot of different options for people to spend an hour on Monday nights, and so many people choose you to spend that hour with. That makes you like an Uber influencer, and what you say is important. And I've noticed, you'll have people on as guests who don't agree with you, and that tolerance that you have. You're an advocate for what you believe in, but you have a tolerance for those that disagree with you, that not every guy in Hudson County has when they pursue a career in journalism.
I appreciate it, David. I'm trying to reach out to Christopher. If you know anybody that can maybe get me in touch with him, I've sent some emails. I've talked to some surrogates. I want to get Christopher on. I mean, other than just being Cowboy fans, I can't imagine I'm gonna have anything to agree with him. But if I do get him on, believe me, I'll let you know for sure.
You have no idea how tempted I am right now to just call him on his cell and put it on speaker and let you just talk to him and let me listen. But
oh my God, well, David, if
I'll give you the cell number, give it a try. He's a blowhard. He loves to pontificate. He'll come on and tell you stories for hours and hours and hours. And maybe if you put a few hours into it, one of those stories might be true.
Wow, folks, I'll tell you, David Wildstein dropping bombs. I love it. Folks, he is David Wildstein, the distinguished editor of the New Jersey Globe. Visit NewJerseyGlobe.com for the best reporting and news here in the Garden State, folks. It's not just David Wildstein, Joey Fox, Jared Washburn, just a great staff. And just a real plug to them real quick, David, because you have a great staff that works with you.
We do. Joey Fox and Zach Blackburn and Kevin Sanders, who runs the technical side of the site. I mean, we we had a lot of fun together as a group, and that's important too.
David, stay warm down there in Florida. I'll try to get warm too. Folks, he's David Wildstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, our guest this week on Real Talk. David, thank you so much.
Good night. Thanks, Fernando.
Take care. Folks, again, good stuff there with David Wildstein, the distinguished editor of the New Jersey Globe. Appreciate him giving a few minutes of his time here tonight on Monday. And folks, really, nobody breaks it down better than David Wildstein when it comes to these special elections in New Jersey, the upcoming primaries, and all these congressional districts here in the Garden State. And trust me, I'll be getting David back on later on this spring as the primary season continues to heat up here in New Jersey. So I can't again say enough about the wealth of knowledge that David Wildstein brings on this program and how he continues to come on. And listen, I'll be honest with you, folks. I'm pretty flattered when I hear compliments like that from David Wildstein. Trust me, it's quite humbling. And you know me, folks, I'm not the most humble guy around, probably the least humble person walking, but I'm humbled when I hear flattery like that from David Wildstein. I really appreciate his belief in my brand of journalism and quite frankly, for taking the time to come on this show as regularly as he does here on the Jersey First Television Network. So I appreciate his time. And certainly, folks, if you don't follow David Wildstein, make sure you follow him on Twitter, again, at Wildstein. Make sure you follow the New Jersey Globe at NJ Globe. And certainly make sure you check it out on Facebook as well. And, of course, on their website. Again, the best scoops, the best analysis, the best commentary and news, folks. It's always with the New Jersey Globe. Folks, it's a little after 6:05 here on the East Coast. Well, you know what time it is. Yes, folks, it's that time of the week that you always look forward to. Not just only the interviews, because I bring you exclusive and exceptional interviews, of course, folks, but what you're waiting for, of course, it's time for Final Thoughts. And folks, I talk about it all the time on this program. I mean, obviously, there's no shortage of bad actors here in New Jersey that I like to roast on a regular basis, whether it's in academia, right? Like beta males like Joe Amididis at the Center for Cooperative Media at Woke State University over there in Montclair, right? Or useless activists, right? I mean, you name it, folks, or useless journalists like Alan Steinberg, Tom Moran, John Van Vliet, useless public officials like, I don't know, Ravi Bala, Anthony Veneri, who else? Phil Cohen. I mean, Jesus Christ. Or, overpaid, apple picking, paper pushing, do nothing government employees. I don't know, like Maria Rodriguez or others, right? Like U.S. Representative LaMonica MacGyver, right? Or, lazy journalists like Charles Steyer, Chucky or Matt Friedman. And you folks, take your pick. Max Pizarro, who, if he works twice a month, that's a lot. Okay. Or other useless women in New Jersey like Amy Torres from the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, or Nettie Morrissey from the New Jersey Working Families Party, or Make the Road New Jersey, or Lauren Albrecht, or Kayla Burrell in Jersey City, or other useless women like Jay Lassiter, right? But folks, when I think of useless, quite frankly, and think about virtue signaling, when it comes to journalism, one name comes to mind, but I got to give credit where it's due. Okay. I got to give credit, folks. And, again, Uncle Dave, trabajando, working. I mean, es un milagro. Because it's funny that Uncle Dave is the same guy who would ridicule yours truly for having David Wildstein on. And, we all know the story, right? The reason his sorry ass got fired from NJ Spotlight News, he decided to go on an ELEC Zoom meeting and decided to just, lose his mind and literally persecute and shit on David Wildstein. I talked to David Wildstein after that happened. And listen, David has a thick skin. And I think we all know how David Wildstein feels, the contrition he has shown, and he's moved on from that. And he's moved on to produce, not even arguably, okay, it's without dispute the single best news site in New Jersey for New Jersey politics. Now, again, we have a lot of great local news outlets. And again, I like to plug them on this show all the time. Hudson County View with my good friend, a member of the Pinnacle and fellow Rutgers alumnus, John Robert Highness, of course. We have New Brunswick Today with fellow Rutgers alumnus, Charlie Cradaville. Okay. We We have the Edison Reporter, okay, with Kevin Hahn. Okay, we have the Jersey Times with Aaron Morrill. We have Tap Into Jersey City, Hoboken, Bayonne. Okay. A lot of great local news. HUD Post here in Hudson County with their editor, James De Los Santos. But on a statewide level, folks, it's David Wildstein. And wouldn't you know it that Uncle Dave is the same guy who, like, you want to talk about myopic, wants to sort of keep harping on this same mantra about calling David Wildstein a criminal. Folks, folks, let's be fair. You want to talk about criminal? You know who was stealing money for years from NJTV and NJ Spotlight News? This guy, when you're not even working a full week. Okay, so I've always found it rich when I hear someone like Uncle Dave demonize other people. When, let's be honest, if you want to talk about criminality, the way you stole money, David, okay, from NJTV and NJ Spotlight News for years is criminal. Okay, I'm the only one that calls you out on it because, I can. But what's really interesting about David Cruz, folks, and I have to give it to him porque mira, este huevón no trabaja. He is the typical person, okay, that likes to talk a good game about work ethic, pero este un vago, este no sirve para nada. But it's interesting, since he's been unemployed, I got to give it to Uncle Dave to, he could have stayed home, sitting there playing with his dick. I mean, well, I'm sorry, never mind. He'd have to see his dick first to play with it, but that's another conversation. But I got to give him credit because he could be home, sitting around playing with his, what? But instead, Uncle Dave has gotten out there. Uncle Dave has been in the streets. Uncle Dave está en la calle, trabajando, porque tú sabes que Uncle Dave es un trabajador. Oh, please, give me a break. Okay. Uncle Dave has about as much of a work ethic as the New York Mets have a chance to win the World Series. But I got to give credit where it's due. This past week, seeing Uncle Dave freeze his ass off at the Hudson Bergen light rail stop in the Jersey City Heights was really, really interesting. When I saw this, folks, watch this. This is prime real estate right here.
That thought, everybody. I'm David Cruz. We're at the Hoboken Jersey City line at the light rail station here in Jersey City. It's the Congress Street station. Take the elevator down, you're in Hoboken, and it's the 9th Street station. For the longest time, this station has been a perfect spot to chart the changes in this neighborhood. You will see on any given day newcomers, mostly white, heading to their jobs, probably on Wall Street or in the financial district in Jersey City. And on the other hand, you'll see gig workers heading to their jobs at hospitals or bodegas or construction sites.
We just love how Uncle Dave has to make sure that he reminds everybody how good his Spanish is, which it isn't. I mean, I've heard it, right? Bodega, right? Like he's such, Boricua, right? Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, let's continue.
As delivery guys. For the longest time also, these two communities have coexisted without really noticing one another. Until this week, when video of ICE arrest and ICE agents
by a local Karen or stroller mom in Hoboken, but let's not digress.
Interaction with community members afterwards started to spread by social media. We're going to take you inside an emergency community meeting that happened right after that. And
folks, I can smell the cat piss just by looking at this video. Imagine being stuck in that room. I could smell the cat piss and the soy in that room there with the stroller moms, the Karens, cat ladies, and the beta males there. But let's continue on.
Talk to some of the people who were there and some local officials who tell us what's next. That's all coming up on Hold That Thought right after this.
Folks, I got to tell you, I'm impressed. Uncle Dave working because, he barely leaves his house. But, a clock is right twice a day too. But let's continue on here with some of the, folks, what's interesting here, I think let's get to some of the portions. I don't want to bore you and put you to sleep here because, I like my traffic and ratings here on this show. But some of the interesting segments here on the show. All right.
From here. Here. I'm going to come in the elevator now. So I'm gonna just have you back up.
There's the elevator that I can use.
We're gonna take it now. You guys can stay out here. We have the guy in custody. I don't want you guys interfering with us having him.
And of course, you know, Jake Efros, the new councilman in Ward D there in the Jersey City Heights, obviously had to virtue signal with the best of them and make sure that he was in the vicinity, right, with his cell phone, with a smartphone, documenting everything, because you know you got to get that street cred there with the progressives and the DSAs, right?
In custody.
Okay,
So
I'm just trying to.
You can meet us on top
observing.
after.
I'm recording.
Okay? You can record. I have no problem with you recording, but you're not gonna get in the elevator with us right now.
It's my right to be able to use
you're not gonna get in the elevator
public
with us
transit, right?
I'm letting you know if you do come in, I'm gonna consider you as interfering, and then that's 8.
Yeah, and the ICE officer's right. That's the problem with people like Jake Efros and Joel Brooks and the rest of the DSAs, Isaac Jimenez, Hector, you know, Chiquitin, Hector Seguera, you know, all these insufferable leftists that just feel emboldened and empowered to, oh, I don't care. It's because I say so. No, folks, like, you have to follow some law and order, but let's continue.
18 USC 111, you will be charged. All right? So, do your thing. I have no problem with you recording. You record all you want, but I'm letting you know you're not going to come in the elevator. You understand? All right.
Do you know who that?
That's it.
Good. And you know what? I'm glad that the ICE officer cut him off, because it's these type of people that are just insufferable. They just feel that, hey, you know, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep having a tantrum and put off a rant and being a Karen, because you know what? It seems, folks, like many on the left have just been deputized to be insufferable, to just think, oh, you're entitled to interfere with a police operation just because you feel emboldened. No, it doesn't work that way. And that's the problem with many on the left. That's the problem with many progressives. Like, their heart's in the right place, but their head's up their ass.
You're a pig. That's what you are.
You have no idea who you took, huh? You're just picking up random guys. You're profiling random guys down there. You profiled a U.S. citizen. You don't fucking care.
By the way, great language there from an elected official, by the way. I mean, you know, you would think a little decorum from a guy. Well, let's be honest, folks. I mean, being the new councilman, it's probably the first job he's ever had in his adult life, you know. But let's continue.
You're just picking people up, right? You don't have warrants. You don't have warrants for their arrest.
Folks, I'm going to say this again for everybody in the back. You have an order of deportation. And again, if you want to talk about lack of warrants, you can thank President Bill Clinton for that, who signed it into law, where, again, warrants to detain based on immigration status are their own warrants. Okay? There's no probable cause. There's no traditional judicial warrant. Those warrants exist. Okay? Deportation orders are legal warrants. I would have a law degree, but you don't need one to understand that. But it seems like progressives and people like Jake Efros and others want to keep harping on this judicial warrant bullshit. Folks, read. Use Google. It'll make a difference.
Yo, stay away from my neighbor. Stay away from my neighbor. Stay away from my neighbor.
I mean, folks,
Stay away from my neighbor.
Have you ever seen Jake Efros? All 5 foot 5 inches of him. I mean, if he's screaming at you, trust me, folks, I don't think you're ever going to be intimidated whatsoever. At least of all ICE agents or federal agents in general.
We have the legal right to record. We have the legal right to record. You better stay away from my neighbor.
Coward! Identification! They covered yourself! Identify yourself!
There's the Karens. There are the Karens. There's the cat ladies on their way to ShopRite to buy kitty litter.
Pathfinder Nissan, also black. W51UWS.
Oh, blow that whistle. Oh, God. Que me voy a comer mierda. Oh, my God. Here we go.
They've taken at least 2 people now today. Taking at least 2 people now today from our community.
Like, what do you call it? Technical fouls in the NBA here? Jesus.
Unfucking acceptable. God fucking damn it.
As soon as, I found out, we started hearing that it was both,
And by the way, David, shout out to you. I mean, esta mujer está buena. So, I mean, coño, I'm like, all right, at least let's give Dave some credit here. Let's get a smoke show on the screen here. Because believe me, with the amount of Karens and stroller moms and the cat ladies in the Jersey City Heights and in Hoboken, folks, you could get some really fugly looking women on screen, David. But shout out to you, bro. Esta está buena. Coño. All right. At least, and she's a lawyer. So at least, you know what? Folks, 2 green flags there. Está buena. speaks well as an attorney. So I'm not complaining. This is probably the most enjoyable part of watching Uncle Dave's show. Let's continue.
By like the light rail station, there were some reports that they were also on South and Central. There were some reports that they were by Washington Park. And so my house is right in the middle of all three areas. So if you can kind of make it like a triangle, my house is right in the middle. So that is how I found out, and then went on social media and it began to proliferate. And at that point, Jake also came as well. And it was really, lovely to see him because
Folks, I could sit here with like popcorn and just look at her for like hours. Está buena. Coño. I mean, all right, but let's continue here.
He was updating us as well, and that's when he informed us that he will be holding an emergency meeting. And I think about 30 minutes, or while it was happening, it went public, on Instagram.
I mean, I was so grateful, and
Jesus, from one good-looking, long-haired person to this freaking dimwit here, but let's get
and blown away that almost 1,000 people RSVP'd to an emergency community meeting.
What else do they have to do? They're not going to work on Monday. I mean, really? What else do they have to do? It was like that weekend in between the Super Bowl and the championship games, and the Royal Rumble from WWE already passed. So it's like they're not doing much on a Sunday other than freezing. So, I mean, Jesus.
Held and put together within a few hours of these horrible raids on our community, and that.
Look at that blonde over there. I mean, folks, if that is not a Karen or cat lady or like one of those like insufferable feminists that like you don't mind hooking up with and taking home, but like you definitely don't want to bring home to your mom and dad. Trust me on that. I've had to live through that. But let's continue.
1,000 people is represented.
A little blonde hottie there. I mean, yeah.
Of every demographic in the Heights and throughout Jersey City and beyond. From what I heard, people even outside of Jersey City were coming into that meeting. So yeah, I think it really does show that there's an appetite, that there's a clear desire for understanding what's going on, and not only understanding, but doing something about it.
I'm grieving, I'm raging, my kids are grieving, we're raging. I have had family that have been raided. I'm an immigrant,
Yes, are you here legally or illegally? Like, stop with the bullshit semantics. I mean, you can kind of say that out loud if you want, right?
This is really hard for us in our community, and I want to show you so much love and Estados Unidos and all of the people that are doing the work. And I want to offer community care, because while we need to be out, we also need to be collectively caring for one another, and giving ourselves some space to be able to do that. So I don't know how to connect with you, but I would love to do that.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a shit ton of questions from Zoom.
Oh yeah, that Asian guy. That's that shithead that works with Joel Brooks there. That compiled that interesting little video there after Joe Brooks made an ass of himself at the Hudson Media Group studio. Yeah, this freaking dimwit. I mean, Jesus. You think this guy's missed many meals lately? Yeah, probably not. But let's continue.
So the first question would be, where are the people kidnapped by ICE being taken? Is there a detention?
They're not being kidnapped. I'm trying to keep this as a family show here. You effing moron. These are people being detained on immigration orders. Okay, there's no kidnapping here, folks. Okay, this isn't Russia or China where they're kidnapping people out of their homes. Okay, all right. Can we stop with the incendiary rhetoric? Can we stop with the bullshit and the grandstanding and the gaslighting? Okay, this is what this guy and others in the Heights and in Hoboken live for. Besides Uber Eats, by the looks of him, obviously too. That's what he lives for, also. But let's continue.
Center somewhere nearby. Can we go protest at that detention center?
Yes. Delaney Hall in New York. That seems to be where most people are being taken, at least as a first step. They are then being shipped out to other places. For example, the person that we know, the day laborer that died recently, Luis, I believe he was sent out to California.
Folks, here's more grandstanding right here.
Yes, Delaney Hall is the place to go, is the place to show up, whether that's offering help to go support people as a visitor.
There's looking hottie too there at a community meeting. I mean, not bad. It's pretty good, But yeah, wouldn't mind taking her home too. I mean, it's nice to look at.
Or just as a volunteer.
Do we know if those the the raid that happened today, were they targeted or did they just go to a place they knew would be a hot spot for workers? Because there's a lot of like undocumented workers in Hoboken. You know, they make the back of house of almost the majority of restaurants. Yep. And like, did they go in searching for people in specifics, or was this like just genuine racial profiling? They just grabbed anyone with a certain phenotype. Like, I would like to know, because it's kind of scary. I have uncles, you know, I have family, and we all look a certain way, and it's kind of scary when people.
Are you here illegally? I mean, that's the bigger question. Folks, it's not about racial profiling, folks. It just isn't. This is the typical lazy rhetoric that the left loves to gaslight you with. It's true.
Just like because you look a certain way, they want to like target you and stuff like that. So I would do want to know like if it was targeted or if it was just like.
Unfortunately, it does not seem targeted. It seems like broad brush, just racial profiling. Unfortunately, and you know, my heart's with your family. Like, this is not okay, and this is why we got to do this and stick together to push back against it. Because this, even if it was targeted, there would be all these problems. But especially because it's not targeted, especially because it's so indiscriminate and racist, it is that much more egregious. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy they took today, not to say, but he had, you know, it's freezing cold. All you could see is the guy's eyes. He was riding his bike to go to work in a restaurant in Hoboken. Right. And they just took him off his bike. The lady was on her scooter. She right away, thank God, took her phone, but they didn't.
The lady on her scooter, going to work. The Karen and the stroller mom. Or the cat lady, yeah. Good for her, you know. Like, dun da da. Jesus Christ.
I have no way to identify who this person was at all.
No. Memo that I
need to
elevator.
Hold on.
Banning ICE from using county property for their operations. What you saw happen today was citizens interacting and getting involved. But at a certain point, we want to demand that our county sheriffs defend us. They need to be defending our rights and stepping in.
Honey, these are federal officers. Isn't it interesting where, I remember this because this is the typical hypocrisy by the left on almost anything. Do you remember early 2021, 2022, when governors like Ron DeSantis in Florida and Greg Abbott in Texas saw this major influx of illegals? Because remember, then President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris basically left the border wide open. We saw tens of millions of illegals flood into the United States. Right? And remember when those governors decided to say, hey, well, listen, blue sanctuary states and sanctuary cities love illegals. Let's just ship them over there. No, folks, that wasn't semantics. That's like, hey, go live under the policies you advocate for. And what do we hear from clowns like this woman and others from other organizations like Amy Torres with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, or Antoinette Miles in between her fourth or fifth sandwich with the New Jersey Working Families Party, or Nettie Morsi from Make the Road New Jersey, and other organizations, right? What do we hear? Oh, how dare these governors? How dare these governors at the state level think that they can go against federal law and against the administration? Didn't we hear this bullshit, right? Between 2021 to 2024, didn't we hear that? That somehow, oh, how dare the states go against the federal government? That's not acceptable. But somehow, with the Republican now in office, it's these same clowns that are saying, oh, it's okay for the states to spit in the face and be defiant of federal law. See, you can't have it both ways, folks. You just can't have it both ways. And to say nothing of the fact that establishment media here in New Jersey, take your pick on the useless journalist, Tom Moran, when he had a job with the Star Ledger, did he ever once criticize federal immigration law or the lack thereof under the Biden administration, where millions of illegals came into the country here in New Jersey, where we're spending billions of dollars to coddle illegals? Did Max Pizarro, that lazy mother effer, when maybe he's barely working, did he ever write an article about it? No, of course not. Did Alan Steinberg, when he's not sleeping like 15 hours out of the day, did he bother writing an article about the dangers of illegal immigration and a wide open border? Did John Van Vliet? Did Jay Lassiter? Well, Jay Lassiter is too busy putting bongs in his mouth or whatever else in his mouth, but that's a conversation for the other day, right? Or Bob Hennelly or others. Was there ever any criticism about federal immigration law the previous 4 years, where it was a wide open border and basically a mummy asleep at the wheel? No, not a peep. But it's the same grandstanding. It's the same gaslighting that we're supposed to take seriously now. Folks, this is why these meetings are bullshit. They're bullshit. Led by the biggest bullshitters, covered by one of the biggest bullshitters, David Cruz. Let's continue on here. Let's go here. Oh, let's go back to this hot chick. I mean, I could look at her for hours.
It's legal and safe to do in these circumstances as a bystander.
With their enforcement duties. And so if you get too close to them, they could consider that interference.
Yes, because you're not supposed to impede a federal agent from doing their job. But somehow, folks, members of the radical left and progressives have somehow deputized people, whether it be here in Hudson County or throughout New Jersey or throughout the country, that somehow have radicalized people into thinking that it's your obligation to try to impede and interfere with federal law enforcement. We saw it with a member of the House of Representatives, LaMonica MacGyver, all whatever, 300 pounds of her, assaulting a federal agent. And again, shout out to Rob Menendez, very deceptive muscles there to be able to hold back that behemoth. And hopefully she sees her day in court and she rots in jail, because you can't assault a federal agent. You can't, LaMonica, no matter how much you want to virtue signal and grandstand. Okay? Or others in New Jersey that think it's okay to block the entrance to Delaney Hall or to block vehicles. Or in some cases throughout the country, seeing people throwing rocks, bottles, Molotov cocktails at vans and vehicles being utilized by ICE and federal agents. It seems like somehow the left and progressives have radicalized you to the point where you think you're supposed to be doing these things, and that's not true. So shout out to this hot smoke show here for at least telling you the truth where you can't do these things.
If you are, screaming really, in their faces while they're arresting somebody, they could consider that interference. And so if you are going to be recording, you have to make sure that you do it in a safe way. And so when you have your phone,
exactly,
make sure that you are arm's length, away from them. Would really encourage folks to use the Zoom function on their phones as well, to try to get close to them, to record them, but also to not put themselves really in harm's way. And one of the best things that they can do is, when they are recording them, if the ICE officer is telling them to back up or back away and is using the term, interference, then at that point, the bystander should begin walking away. You can record yourself.
But no, folks, a lot of these people feel emboldened and they want to show they have, they got bowling balls in between their legs, and that's going to get you in trouble. It's as simple as that. And in some cases, hurt. Why do that? Why welcome that? Why bring on a problem if you can avoid it? It's as simple as that, folks. But again, the stroller moms, the cat ladies, the Karens, and all these towns throughout New Jersey and throughout the country seem to think they're emboldened. Seem to think, and mind you, it doesn't help when you have garbage journalists not calling out this bad behavior, but in any case, emboldening it, encouraging it. That's not responsible, folks.
Put it to your feet, walking away, but also start talking into your phone or your camera saying, I am backing up, I am backing up. And so begin recording the officer. The officer continues to come sort of close to you. And so the case can be made that you were not the aggressor in this point, and that you were, at the very best, complying with their requests.
So if you're one jack ship, and data privacy.
So the greater net we can cast, the more, if we could put out that information, that would be awesome. The more people we can get, the better.
Yeah. Thank you so much again to Shine Alicia from Estamos Unidos en Sol. So just another round of applause, please, for being so willing to come here and present and share your knowledge and experience last minute. This is really the rapid response we need. Thank you to all the 800-900 people who joined this meeting. Be just a moment, but be a movement. So we got to make that happen. Let's do it. Let's get organized. Let's get ICE out of Jersey City.
Yeah, and by the way, as you can see there, folks, okay, the ICE press office publicly told us that illegals arrested with 10 felonies, right, were taken into custody. Serious criminals. You should be happy about that. You think these cat ladies and stroller moms and Karens were? Of course not. They'd rather virtue signal and grandstand for illegals. But what else is new?
And that's Hold That Thought for this week. Thanks for streaming, liking, and subscribing. I'm David Cruz. We'll see you next week.
Folks, I got, again, Uncle Dave trabajando. Folks, I got to tell you, like, it blows my mind because if you know Uncle Dave as long as I do, tú sabes que él es un huevón. Like, folks, that's sort of like a Spanish term for like lazy ass. Un huevón, que no sirve para nada. You know what I'm saying? Like a slacker, right? So I was impressed with Uncle Dave working, braving the street. I'm sure he walked up the block and got something to eat because, let's be honest, I mean, you know, would it shock you, of course? But what's interesting about Uncle Dave is not just that, folks. But this past weekend, again, folks, when we think about Uncle Dave, we think about not just working there, standing at the light rail stop, but listen, this past weekend, again, shout out to her. As my guest tonight, David Wildstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, eloquently put it, we still have not gotten to a conclusive winner in the 11th congressional district in the special election right now in the Democrat Party. Right now, Ana Lilia Mejia is over 800 votes of an advantage over the former U.S. representative in the 7th congressional district, coincidentally, Tom Malinowski. We'll find out when that race is called. We'll see. There's still a lot of provisional ballots yet to be counted. There are still vote by mails that have yet to be counted. So we'll find out. So shout out to Uncle Dave, again, doing this much work in 1 week. I mean, it blows my mind. Holy shit. Like, you know, did Dave like lose, like, how many calories did he burn here? Obviously not enough, but you know, let's hear it. And this is what's really funny about Uncle Dave when he gets these guests on and the pandering and and the grandstanding. Check this out, folks. You're gonna laugh at this one right here.
The American people, and this is on both sides of the aisle. This isn't just like a Democrat, Republican, left, right. This is regular working class people, middle class people, working poor people feel very disillusioned with the way in which our representatives function. They feel very disappointed in what they've seen out of Congress. You know, when I was on Doors, I heard people speak about like they couldn't understand the cowardice. They couldn't understand why we aren't being big and bold in a moment in which so much is at risk. And again, my candidacy was simply about working class people, working poor people, middle class people are feeling the brunt of this economy and this Democratic backslide. The truth is, I have neighbors in my home, you know, my hometown of Glen Ridge. I have neighbors who speak about the impact that rising healthcare costs are having on themselves and their families. They're making hard choices. They're picking between paying their children's like college tuition and health insurance. And I know that may sound in some ways like the world's smallest violin, but the truth is across our country, families are suffering, and it doesn't have to be this way. You know,
And Lilia, with all due respect, again, here in New Jersey, you can't blame Republicans for the cost of living. You can't blame Republicans for affordability. You can't blame Republicans for a skyrocketing state budget. You can't blame Republicans for the gas tax going up again. You can't blame Republicans for tolls on the Garden State Parkway and the New Jersey Turnpike going up again. You can't. You just can't do that. That's being intellectually dishonest. I get it. You have a sort of voter base you have to pander to, but that's not the case here. And again, folks, I've reached out to her campaign. I'm hoping to have her on because I do want to have those discussions. As David Wildstein put on here, folks, I've had some people on this show that I disagree with, but guess what? They come on this show and we can participate in a discussion without being disagreeable. That's what quality journalism is. Okay? That's what trustworthy opinion journalism is. Okay? Not just softball questions like you see from Uncle Dave and others in New Jersey media, right? Well, independent media now since he's unemployed. Okay? But let's continue on.
We could have fairer tax policy that doesn't tax the first 40,000, that has incremental taxation so that working class, middle class people have a greater ability to thrive. We could have universal childcare and universal healthcare, or at least a public option that would allow people to have these two things that.
Now, in fairness, and again, I call balls and strikes fairly on this show. Folks, as a conservative, and you know that I'm as unapologetic and as a lot of conservatives there is in New Jersey independent media, there are some progressive ideas I can get behind. Okay, as couples and families are struggling to raise newborn babies, yeah, universal healthcare. I'm sorry, universal child daycare is not unforeseeable. It's a good thing, but more importantly, like access to healthcare, because a healthier population is a more productive population. Okay, if you're less dependent on medications, pharmaceutical corporations, and the insurance companies, and you're being more productive at work, you could also be productive in the home. You can spend more time with your family. You can be healthier. That's a good thing. That's one of the few progressive positions I can get on board with. But again, folks, and again, I'm hoping to have Anna Lily on this show, and we'll have this conversation, because I've interviewed her years ago when I was working with Insider NJ, and I hosted Politically Direct, a very, by the way, an award-winning podcast during my journalism career. Okay, but Democrats at the federal, and mind you, she's running for a seat in the House of Representatives. Okay, folks. It's not too long ago, and again, I'm young enough to remember when the 44th president took office in 2009, when the Democrat Party in Washington had 60 seats in the United States Senate, when they had an overwhelming majority in the House of Representatives, almost close to 300 seats in the House. Okay? And the best Democrats could do was pass the Affordable Care Act. Again, provide health care and access to it for millions of Americans that couldn't get it before. But let's stop pretending that the problem with healthcare is just with Republicans. Both parties have let us down when it comes to quality healthcare. Both parties have sold us out to corporations. I'll admit that, and I can at least be intellectually honest and have that conversation. But Anna Lily, and again, and David Cruz is the wrong person to have this conversation with, because he's as dumb as a doorknob. We all know this. Have it with academics like myself. I'm willing to have these conversations with you. But let's be fair exactly about who's to blame about healthcare and universal daycare. Okay, both parties are to blame. We have to be honest about that.
That end up costing tens of thousands of dollars for families are under greater control, more affordable, if not free. There are corrections we can make if we just had fair policies, but the thing that stands in the way are corporate lobbyists and big money interests that silence you.
A lot of people forget, because you started the struggle some time ago, that you were one of the early advocates for tearing down the party line. And so, yeah, people kind of forget that, but here is a perfect kind of manifestation of that. And I wonder if, absent that revolutionary reform, with their having a party line now, would you have even considered running?
I mean, I think, it's funny. Thank you for raising that, because you and I have.
Again, I'll call balls and strikes fairly here. That's a good question for once from Uncle Dave, because usually he's his partisan grandstanding self. But that's an interesting question.
Had conversations about this many. We got rid of the line, vote potential leaders become.
We should state again that this election is not yet decided.
Yes.
And it is a primary, so you're not the congressperson. But the demographics of the district, et cetera, suggest that the Democratic winner of the primary will win the general election, et cetera.
I think more importantly, though, the issues that I'm speaking to resonate with voters across the spectrum: affordability, democracy, et cetera.
Well, thank you for leading me out to my question. There is, regardless of who sits in this seat, so much work to do, and the country, I was covering the ICE arrests in Jersey City.
Wait for it.
Just looking at the video of unmarked car, police with, kind of okey-doke paraphernalia on, no identification, nothing, just grabbing up people.
They have gear, David. I mean, come on. I mean, I know you're a come mierda, and maybe your eyes need to be checked. I mean, change the prescription on the glasses, but you can see there, obviously, I mean, you indict yourself by just the footage you're providing. Jake Efros, right by the elevator, showed an ICE agent there with full gear and full identification. So stop the bullshit. Come on.
People and throwing them into a van. Democracy itself is really on the line right now. And do you think people are starting to see that when you talk about...
Folks, let me just give you a little bit of an education here, because you're not going to hear this education from Uncle Dave, right? But this is what's interesting about immigration. Okay, let me just give you a perspective here. Enforcing, again, Dave, I get it. You're like 85, 86 years old. So whenever you took U.S. history back in high school, I doubt you took it in college or you remember it, but whenever you took high school history or civics, right, you do understand that enforcing federal immigration law, like that's a part of the legislative branch, right? Like writing federal immigration law is the responsibility of the legislative branch, and then enforcing it is the job of the executive branch. Okay. And for as much as you want to say that enforcing federal immigration law is a threat to democracy, folks, this is what's really interesting. It's people like Uncle Dave that are quick to demonize these United States when it comes to federal immigration law. Let me just give you a perspective of what the penalties are for illegal entry in other countries. Now, again, this is not a whataboutism, but this is simply to show you how politically myopic Uncle Dave is. But what else is new? Right? Folks, can I take a guess what happens in the country of Singapore if you are found to be illegal in Singapore? Folks, you spend 6 months in jail, by the way. No due process there. Okay. For example, in Russia, if you're an illegal in Russia, you spend 2 years in a labor camp. India, you spend multiple years in prison as well for illegal entry into the country of India. Is India not some sort of democracy, David? Again, we're talking about countries like Singapore and Russia, which I think are fair to say, I think are totalitarian governments. But no one's saying that about India. Pakistan, I don't think Pakistan is some sort of totalitarian government. Yeah, it's some sort of Islamic regime, sure. Something we never want to emulate in this country. But if you're caught in Pakistan, for example, you spend multiple years in prison. But here in the United States, if you're here illegally, guess what you have access to? Free housing in many cases, healthcare, education, food, transportation. Your anchor babies get to become citizens. Folks, nobody has it better than illegals in the United States. So how enforcing federal immigration law is a threat to democracy, David? Again, it just shows you, well, it really shows all of us how full of shit you are. But that's nothing new with David Cruz. We know he's full of shit all the time, right? But let's continue.
About getting your message out beyond.
And here's what's funny, and you know by the tone he takes in the following, you know he watches this show. You know he watches this show. But let's continue on here.
Got people in broad daylight, and there's throws you if you're of stand up against this. Essentially, all unidentified people.
It's easy to
criminals. Maybe this person was abducted. Maybe this person is detained. We don't
This
know.
And it's easy to demonize illegals so that they're dehumanized and not so concerned when you see someone thrown into a.
No one's dehumanizing anybody, David. Okay, no one's. But again, if you're here illegal, you're an illegal. Stop with the bullshit semantics. This is where you and the left lose independents and moderate voters or even conservatives when you grandstand the way you do. If you're here illegally, you're illegal. Better example here. If I decided to travel across state lines, okay, to a firearms convention or show in Pennsylvania, for example, and I decide to bring a firearm across state lines, and I get stopped by a police officer on a random search or whatever, or they have probable cause to search my vehicle, am I going to tell the cop, David, oh, well, I'm sorry, that's an undocumented weapon? No, it's an illegal weapon. It's not registered. It's illegal. Very much like you're here illegally. Okay? Like, stop with the semantics, David. Like, you should know better. Okay? I'm not sure if English is your first or second language, but again, it just seems like proper grammar or just the basic definitions get lost on you. And I get it. You're 85, 86 years old. Ya la mente tuya ya no funciona como antes. And trust me, we all get there. We're all going to get old. Hopefully I'll get old. But God damn it, bro. Like, you've gotten to a level of delusion, David, that's embarrassing. But let's continue.
Van. But today it's the illegal. Tomorrow it's the black one, the brown one, the gay one.
There's no, David, what are we talking about here? Again, leave it to Uncle Dave to just grandstand and virtue signal and gaslight you into believing his bullshit. But let's hear it out.
I mean, in fact, that's already happening. Remember Chicago, or their agents scaled an entire building in the south side of Chicago, a predominantly black neighborhood, and then dragged out women, men, elderly, and children in the middle of a Chicago.
Oh, so there were no gang members in Lilia, really? There were no gang members in that building at all? There are no gang members that ISIS detained in Chicago, which is a war zone, by the way, which, by the way, Uncle Dave wants to talk about a threat to democracy. Do you care about black kids in Chicago, David, that are gunned down every weekend? Have you seen the gun violence in Chicago every weekend, David? No, of course not. Uncle Dave would rather stuff his face, we had another sandwich, than give you the facts. He'd rather grandstand and gaslight you than talk about real issues. That's not a surprise, folks, from Uncle Dave.
Chicago winter outside, and they weren't criminals. They were in their homes asleep. And so again, we are entering a territory that is unconstitutional, that is incredibly dangerous, and we need to be bold enough to say it. Again, my candidacy was more than just speaking platitudes. I held trainings. I had town halls where I introduced myself as a candidate, and then I subsequently.
As you can see, Dave's not paying attention. He's probably looking at his phone for his next order from Uber Eats, but that's most likely.
Did ICE out training so that people understood how they could behave if someone showed up to their door. It's sad, but that is the moment in which we're in. We have to inform ourselves. We need to agitate our community so we take action, and we must mobilize or we're going to lose our democracy.
And that's the kind of stuff that is on the line right now, folks. Ana Lilia.
Again, folks, it doesn't shock you about Uncle Dave. And folks, again, what's interesting about Uncle Dave, now that he's unemployed and he's home, he has all this time in the world, is that Dave now can take even more time to grandstand and gaslight you into believing this bullshit. And here's the thing, folks, and I think some of you might ask yourself, like, Fernando, you've demonstrated a certain amount of disdain and dislike for Uncle Dave, and I think it's warranted because there's receipts here for why este come mierda me cae mal, right? Because again, it's rich for him to call someone else a criminal when, let's be fair, he's been stealing money for years. When he worked at NJTV and NJ Spotlight News. David, again, you lose credibility when you're trying to call someone else a criminal when you yourself could be accused of being a criminal by stealing money the way you have for decades and barely working and cashing a pretty nice paycheck. Let's be fair about it. But you want to know, folks, another big reason why I don't like Uncle Dave. And maybe you're just watching this show for the first time. Maybe you don't know the history between David Cruz and Fernando Uribe, but it's story time with Fernando Uribe, baby. And here's a little story time for you. First time I ever got to meet David Cruz or interact with him was many, many years ago when I was working with Hudson TV, hosting the Uribe Express segments there and everything else. Okay. And you know what's interesting? Folks, if you ever watched the movie Goodfellas, I think you'll appreciate it, right? When Joe Pesci at a young age was that kid that was shining shoes for mob bosses. And eventually, as he got older and the mob bosses got out of prison and we're still talking to him like he's still that little kid. If you remember, Joe Pesci in the movie was like, yeah, I ain't shining shoes no more. Well, folks, that's pretty much the dynamic here. Because for a long time, Uncle Dave was, I wouldn't say the standard bearer, but cut his teeth in the business, rolled up his sleeves here, and he worked at one point. But at that same point, while working, other people started working too. And other people started rising in the ranks. And for someone like David Cruz, yeah, he doesn't like to share. He doesn't like sharing spotlights with other Hispanic journalists. He wants to be that guy because, él es Latino, y él es Boricua. No. You need to learn how to share, mother effer. And that's something that David Cruz has never liked. And that's something that David Cruz has always struggled with. Okay? But the biggest pet peeve I would argue about Uncle Dave is, and again, this is something that, quite frankly, I'm never going to forget because I'm Cuban and I keep receipts. So when I hold grudges for life. So when I dislike you, trust me, I will dislike you forever. And I remember I would say about 8 years ago, I was privileged for the first time to be invited to Reporters Roundtable, a show that he hosted for some years, but of course he was the successor to the GOAT of journalism, and that's Michael Aaron. The late, great Michael Aaron, who I still miss to this day. And I remember being invited by the booking agent on multiple occasions to NJ Spotlight News to participate on Reporters Roundtable. Folks, it's on my social media. You can watch it. Great performance, great suits. I'm photogenic. I mean, it goes without saying. I'm good for the camera. And I remember taking a picture with Michael Aaron. I remember because I used to interview Michael Aaron on other podcasts I used to host. But Uncle Dave didn't like that. So much so that, of course, Uncle Dave, I guess, because Uncle Dave talks out of both sides of his mouth. Apparently, I'm not worth listening to, but he listened to me enough where he got a little sensitive when I started talking about the south side of Jersey, which coincidentally is where he resides. Okay? And I remember Uncle Dave coming up to me, I believe after the second time I went to NJ Spotlight News. I'm not second or third, I'm not sure, remember. But I remember Uncle Dave coming up to me and sort of showing his disapproval for my comments about the south side of Jersey City. Yeah, Dave, it's a shithole. It still is a shithole. Okay, the only time I've ever gone there is maybe to hook up with a chick that in the late hours, but trust me, I lock my door and I take any valuables with me because I don't want to leave them in the car. It's a shitty part of town. But somehow Uncle Dave got all sensitive. He got all menstrual. That how dare I? Oh, that I'm racist or that I'm dog whistling. No, David, I'm sorry. It's a shitty part of town. You need to own that. Now, if you still choose to live in a shitty part of town despite making hundreds of thousands of dollars, ese es tu problema, no es mío. So you can't get all offended and all delicado because, oh, I said that, oh, the south side of your city is a shithole. It is, es mierda. Sorry. And from that moment on, it seems like Uncle Dave had an issue with me, and that's okay. But here's the truth, folks. In the few years I've been doing journalism and really doing it as a part-timer, folks, what have we come to learn based on traffic, metrics, awards, and everything else? David, I do this better part-time than you can ever do it full-time. And that's not bullshit. Okay? You can look right there behind me. Right? Ahí. Tú ves todos los premios. They're everywhere. Okay? I can do this part-time better than you ever could full-time. And that's been proven. And that eats at you, mother effer, because you don't know how to respond to it. And sure, you want to bat-mouth me and bash me to other people. Sure, that's not a problem. Because what it shows me is que tú no tienes, tú no tienes la hueva to say it to me. Whenever you see me or you give me a dirty look, that's fine. I don't got a problem smiling at you and just being condescending because you deserve it. Because you're a guy that's made a living off of being dishonest to people. You've made a living off of bullshitting people. You've made a living off gaslighting, grandstanding, and throwing softballs. That's not what we do on this show. And congratulations. Welcome to the podcast world. And I want to wish you luck. I hope you get my traffic. I doubt you will. But I hope you get it because at least it shows me that you're working. You're working for the first time in a long time. So, folks, there's a lot of people to take seriously in journalism. Let's start with my guest tonight, David Wildstein. But someone you can never take seriously? Este huevón. Because let's be honest, can you ever take him seriously? Yeah, I doubt it. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, a special comment here for you. And again, I have to sort of, preface it by saying that shout out to activist and organizer Ana Lilia Mejia, who seems to be right now the front runner to win the special election in the 11th Congressional District for the Democrat Party. But you know what's interesting? And I know that she's listening and she's smart because you know who she's chosen to distance herself from? Yes, grifters and useless people in New Jersey politics. When I think of useless, I think of esta campesina there, Patty Campos Medina, and her useless husband, Bob Medina, right? And it's interesting. Ay Dios mío. Ay Dios mío. Folks, I know you may need to take a drink there. Two of the least photogenic people I've ever seen in my life. Dios mío. Imagine waking up next to this. I mean, God. How they procreate is kind of interesting. Well, again, folks, there's somebody for everybody. You know? So. But what's interesting is the audacity of people like Patty Campos Medina to drop endorsements for Annalena Mejia when Annalena Mejia has made it clear she wants nothing to do with people like this because they're grifters. And here's a newsflash. These are the same people still mad that somehow the Sherrill administration has not given them any jobs because they worked so hard for Mikey Sherrill during the campaign. Folks, I would not trust Estos Dos Come Mierdas to run a lemonade stand in the middle of a heat wave in July. This is the level of incompetence that we see here. Con estos dos imbécil. But somehow they think that they're owed a job because, they knocked on a few doors and they published a couple of social media posts. Really? Really? And folks, the Sherrill administration was smart not to give Estos Dos Imbécil any work. But Annalena Mejia is also smart to distance herself from grifters like these. Check out this endorsement, which is really funny.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Patricia Campos Medina. I am picking it up from my friend and...
Oh, God, my God. Massacre in the English language. Ayúdame. Please.
The colleague, comrade, Arlene Quiñones Perez, here in Hunterdon County. My colleague and in our work that we do, engaging voters across New Jersey and Latinas here in New Jersey with Latina Civic Action. We are excited about two things. One, Annalena Mejia and what she was able to accomplish for our community, for progressive voters, for Latinas.
What she was able to do without your help, thankfully, because, I mean, why would you want the stench of Patty Medina and Arlene Quiñones Perez to be anywhere near you? I mean, and Aaliyah's smart. I may not agree with a lot of positions, but she's a smart lady, folks. She's smart politically, unlike these two.
Here in New Jersey and for Benito Bowl. So today we're celebrating, and I urge you, pay attention to the election, pay attention to what Annalena was able to accomplish, and it shows that New Jersey voters, City 11 voters are hungry for a fighter, someone who understands that it's not just about talking and it's not just about being middle of the road. It's about actually having convictions and fighting for them. And that's what.
Yeah, when it comes to having convictions, you don't have any, honey. And neither does Arlene, but more on Arlene in a little bit.
New Jersey is looking for. So let's shout out to Annalena, give her some strength. We are with her.
If Annalena needs any support, it's not from grifters like Patty Medina or Latina Civic Action and those women there. That serves no purpose to her. It really doesn't. And again, it's a known fact that Annalena Mejia has distanced herself from clowns like this one. Okay.
And we are going to make sure that she comes through for all of us, for New Jersey and for America. But because what we need in Congress is somebody who will fight for all of us, for our Constitution and for New Jersey. So I'm passing it on to Andrea Martinez so that she can also spread the word that we are going to be celebrating Benito Bowl, the Super Bowl, and we are celebrating.
Folks, speaking of insufferable Benito Bowl, check out this word here.
Hey everyone, it is Sunday morning and it is Super Bowl Sunday, or Benito Bowl, if everyone wants to check out the short. Just coming on to say good morning, show off my dogs who are saying hi.
No one cares about your dogs, least of all me. No one cares about your dogs. No one.
As well, because they wanted to be here.
No one cares.
And to officially endorse Annalena Mejia. I am so proud to have this strong Latina running in this election. And I'm
sure you are, because you like a job or you want to be able to grift your way onto that congressional office. But again, folks, listen, I don't want you to watch the whole thing. You can go on her Facebook and listen to this insufferable bullshit from yet another grifter like Arlene Quiñones Perez. Okay. But the reason that I talk about this and the reason I had to bring this up is, folks, these are not believable people. These are not credible people. Okay. And when I think of people lacking credibility or any sort of moral compass or decorum, it's these clowns. So when it's brought to my attention that the Sherrill administration won't give them jobs. Why would they? Why would you start off your administration on a bad foot by hiring clowns like this? Folks, when we think about Patty Medina and Bob Medina, and I feel bad because I love Bob's brother, Carlos Medina, the president and the CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I love Carlos. But imagine how shitty it must be waking up every morning knowing that Bob Medina is your brother, that Bob Medina is related to you. Folks, if I were Carlos, I would disavow this clown like in a second. Because when I think of Patty Medina and Bob Medina, you know what comes to mind? Just like with David Cruz, you know what you know what's coming, right?
No. You're still a loser. Clown. Still a loser. Say it with me, Michael. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show.
Clown show. Clown show. Folks, and when we think of Patty and Bob when they enter into parties, I've seen them, and you can imagine the response to them, right? Oh my God, folks, yes. You know, shout out to Mikey Sher early on during her administration. There maybe are some people that deserve jobs in this new term, but folks, two people that don't deserve any jobs are these clowns. I wouldn't trust them to oversee a lemonade stand in the middle of a heat wave in July. You could be sweating your balls off. I wouldn't trust them to sell a gallon of lemonade to anybody. That's the level of ineptitude, folks. Esa es la clase de imbécil que tenemos aquí con Patty y con Bobby. Oh, my God. No one should give them a job. And if you're Ana Lily Mejia, good job by you to stay away from these clowns, because trust me, you want anything to do with them. They've already shown you they're clowns. They have. They've already shown you they're clowns.
No. You're still a loser. Clown. Still a loser. Say it with me, Michael. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. Clown show. It's a clown show.
Folks, it's the clown show. And that's my special comment. Folks, once again, I want to thank the distinguished editor-in-chief of the New Jersey Globe, David Wildstein, for his appearance today. And I appreciate all of his knowledge and insight about what's going on during this election season, of course, throughout New Jersey politics. So we appreciate you tuning in here today. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode, folks. Again, it only takes a few seconds to show your support for fearless independent media, which you could always see here with Jersey First TV. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and X. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. And also download us on Spotify or SoundCloud. So guess what? As the days are getting a little bit warmer, you're walking your dog, doing food shopping, whatever it is, last minute Valentine's Day shopping, trust me, you have your smartphone or your tablet with you, take Jersey First TV, and believe me, you'll never be disappointed. And again, folks, I say it all the time, bravely and proudly leading the way here, defiantly, with Jersey First TV, educating and advocating for the great residents here in New Jersey, folks. Brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe premiere every Monday night live. Check your local listings for start times on all of your social media applications. Again, we appreciate you making this a part of your Monday night viewing. Always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it is Real Talk right here on the Jersey First Television Network. I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Enjoy the rest of your week. Please party responsibly. Enjoy Valentine's Day and enjoy President's Day weekend. A long weekend for many of us. Enjoy it. Again, stay safe out there. Folks, we'll see you next Monday night here on Real Talk with Jersey First TV. Once again, folks, I'm Fernando Uribe. Thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.